Good morning, everyone. This is Charlotte, and we are chatting in cars. This is a podcast where I pick out random topics, and sometimes topics I haven't actually put in my bag. 7:21 at the moment. We are driving towards work. Unfortunately, I'm a teacher, and yes, I have to go there. Apparently, you don't get paid for sitting on your ass. Shit. This is a podcast where I swear and talk about sensitive topics, so if you don't want to hear it, you don't have to listen to it. I'm not going to make you. I can't come to your house and force you to put on the headphones or whatever you're using and take in the information. I'm not into that. Plus, I don't particularly like the controlling situation in that, scenario. The topic for today is poverty cycles. Let me just check that. I chose the topic and then I put it down. Poverty cycles, yes. Right, here we go. What do I know? Sorry, I'm just pulling out my driveway. You will hear beeping and swearing. I do swear at people while I drive. No class. Maybe, I don't know. Poverty cycles. I was raised in a poverty cycle, yes. Kind of. Well, not really. It was like a first generation poverty cycle. Second generation poverty cycle, I should say. Where did it start? Okay. So, my grandma, I know, was born into money. She was Roman Catholic, Irish. She had something like 8 brothers, and they all had their own Ford whatever cars, and she came from money. What she did was she married Protestant for love, of course, which I'm absolutely all for. She's from Galway. She married for love, I'm just saying. So with the assumption maybe that she would have an okay life with this man that this was post-war. My dad's side was never particularly rich. They were okay, they were well put, but never particularly, wealthy. So any money that I would have had in my family, besides some random barons 200 odd years ago, apparently, which is according to my granddad, Huguenots or some kind of barons where they owned half the castles. Yeah, whatever, anyway. So my grandma married into poverty. So, okay, essentially. My mum was raised in poverty as a result. There was never any money. So it was hard to break that cycle, and thereby I was raised in poverty because my parents just didn't have the skills or the means to break out of it. They had a decent education, eventually. My mum had to retrain as a teacher. My dad started off as an accountant, although he's Peter Pan syndrome. He was never really employed for long. The idea was there, and that's what my mum bought into when she married him, sort of things, because they'd known each other since they were kids. The idea was she stays at home, he works, it's good income with an accountancy job, right? The reality of the situation is my dad's fucked in the head and doesn't want to accept responsibility for anything, including raising 4 kids or providing for them. So she had to retrain as a teacher to provide for all of us, including him. The resulting thing was stress. So there was this big emphasis growing up with poverty that women had to be self-sufficient in case you run into another one of these fuckers. So that's where I get my independence from. It was drilled into me since I was about 5. My domestication started at 5. And I would like to say that it was upbringing, but it was domestication. You start with the basics. House care, cooking, cleaning, all the deemed girly things, if you believe in gender. After that came other skill sets like renovating houses and shit like that, digging up slate floors, landscaping, stuff like that. My mum wanted to make sure that we were capable of everything in case, we accidentally run into another one of these fuckers. Which I did, funny enough. I married one. He didn't look like it on the outside. I thought he was actually going to be pretty good, but, push comes to shove, they show their true colours in the end. But that was okay. I mean, I had trouble breaking out of that poverty cycle because I chose an unreliable mate, essentially. My dad didn't exactly set the great tone for what masculinity should look like. He was physically present. I have to say he was given present. Given the area I was raised in, he was physically present. So you can be giving him credit for that. But whether he contributed at all or if he was any kind of a father per se is nah. So nah. He was essentially another kid. He ran up bills. He was a berserker. There's no connection there at all, really. which is sad, really, because I'm looking at it now, approaching 40, and I've got no connection with my dad because he was useless on every fucking level. That could have been a result of his upbringing, obviously. My granddad, his father was not exactly the best person. That's Bob, the bastard. He was a sort of puppet master wannabe. He's just a nasty prick. So, I don't know. I suppose it trickles down, but it didn't exactly set the good, pretense for getting out of poverty. It's like you've got this male figure who doesn't want to provide, doesn't want to protect. My mum, who took on a hell of a lot of, stress and the weight of everything. But it just proves how capable women are. So if you get a girl sitting there saying, I can't do that, I'm a girl, fuck off, you can, then you will. I have no excuses for that. And these girls that want to get married and just stay at home, it's like, no, you are capable, you will perform. There's no half-assing it. No, we're going to do it all. So poverty cycles are hard to break out of because there is a mindset, and I've noticed with my kids at the moment, because I'm a teacher, I'm working in low SES schools, that there is a mindset that things like education aren't prioritized. It's boring, it's not entertaining, and therefore, why should we give it any kind of credit? My kids get bored very easily. The parents don't have the skills to raise them properly, or at least the ones I've seen. And so instead of actually raising them to be responsible adults, they just busy them with shit. So they'll, either it's a lot of neglect as well, emotional neglect, so they don't support them that well. There's a lot of drug abuse, there's a lot of alcohol abuse, there's a lot of all these horrible things that go with working and living in a poverty area. And my kids are getting the brunt of it, basically. They're catching the end of it, which in turn will create some kind of, mother-father wounds in itself in the long term, I think, unless they can overcome themselves. I don't know. So the cycle continues. They'll see what it is their parents are doing, they'll deem it as normal, and they'll perpetuate it by, monkey see, monkey do sort of thing. The only reason I managed to somewhat break out of it was using education as a means to get out, which is what they told us it should be. I found that school was safer for me and more comfortable. I didn't have a good home life, so school became like a haven, which is essentially what I'm trying to do now for these kids in the schools I'm working for. It's like, I know they're coming from shit. If we can give them a safe environment to grow in and develop in, then at least they can sort of get out of that, perpetuating cycle of being what their parents are. And in some ways, being like your parents can be a good thing, but at the same time, when the parents are fucking up their lives and thereby taking it out on the kids, it's not exactly something you want to keep going. You don't want to pass that on. It's not something that's useful or valuable or will increase their, life chances. So we're trying to break that through education at this point. And that's one of the reasons I went into teaching, because I saw the suffering, I didn't like it, so I thought, what can I do? I know what my kids are going to go through because I've been through it. What can I help with? If anyone tells you it's for the holidays, they're full of shit. You get holidays. Like, first of all, my holidays are not paid for. So I'm essentially unemployed for, 2 weeks or 6 weeks of the year. So yeah, I'm not doing it for that. Yeah, poverty cycles. I do it because I know what they've gone through, and that's one of the reasons I went into teaching, because it's a good, solid job. There's always a need for it. The kids will always need you. And so it's something I can live with, basically. Bearing in mind, I've been doing it for 12 years now, so it has taken its toll. But I know what the result is for the kids. Hopefully, we're going to see some kind of improved results for their life chances as well. I've seen some of my kids come back I've been teaching 12 years, so my year sixes I had in my first year have come back with their kids. So you get to see what kinds of parents they turn into, and sometimes it's good and sometimes it's bad. Some of my kids go on a crime spree. It's kind of worrying, but I guess that's, down to personal choice. It's also circumstances as well. It's hard to break out of a poverty cycle when your parents aren't there to reinforce any kind of positive values towards morality, because they're doing it themselves. I've had some of my old kids, a few years ago actually, I was watching them in the supermarket. We've got this big shopping centre, there's a Target at one end, Kmart at the other, basic. And I was watching them, and the kids went in with like an empty trolley and a receipt for things that someone had bought at some point. They went in and they came back out again. I think it was maybe, it would have to be, because they're checking their receipts and bags, it would have had to have been like a few minutes before or something like that. But they went in, loaded up the trolley in the shop, came back out, got the receipt checked by the person. And what happens, of course, because it's, you know, stealing essentially, they caused the security. But because they were, they had the receipt, I think they got away with it actually, I can't remember. But their parents were sitting there waiting on the chairs outside. So the parents were setting them up to teach them how to do this. And I watched, and it's on security cameras and everything, and they got done for, I think, actually, to tell the truth, because it would have been on security cameras. But this is the existence they've got, where the parents are teaching them that it's okay to do these kinds of things. And it's this kind of shit that leads them into crime, and it leads them into not being able to get a job, and so that cycle continues, where they either sit in the crime, or they go to prison, or, you know, because this complete lack of responsibility and morality. It's considered normal. So how do we break them out of that? We're trying to give them an education where, you know, they can get a good job, they can get a better life, they don't have to commit crimes just to do this kind of thing. I mean, I've had kids come to school where they've got the security tag still on the clothes their parents have nicked. And there is an element where shit happens, right? You lose your job, you can't afford to, but you don't do that. I mean, morals go out the window when you're running out of money, basically. Essentially, isn't it? It's like, my kids need this, I have to get it somehow, I'll nick it. I mean, we laugh about it because I was raised in it and I've seen it a lot, but it's, at the same time, it's like, you shouldn't have to do that. That's A, poverty mindset, B, it's not going to go anywhere, you just get in more trouble. You're going to get done for it, essentially, and it fucks up your life in the long term for the sake of short-term gratification sort of thing. But they don't understand that mindset because all they see is the immediate. It's like, I have to get this now because if I don't, I will have to go without, or something bad will happen in the immediate. Never mind investing in your education so you can be able to afford these and just buy them outright and not have to get in trouble for anything. It's that immediate gratification they sort of emphasize. Which is terrible for kids because I can't get them to break out of doing weird shit like that. They just see it as normal, which is tragic because it sets them up for a life in crime, essentially. Having said that, my family were on Centrelink as well. There's another facet of the poverty cycle where it just becomes normal to sit on welfare. And when you ask them, why don't you go get a job? Why don't you better your life chances? Because welfare isn't a great payment. It's shit. I used to get, when we went into COVID lockdowns and I was forced to go onto welfare, which I hated, I was only getting $5.70 a fortnight. What's that in pounds? Like 200 odd. It's not a lot. And my rent at the time, my mortgage was, nowhere near helpful for, you know, paying bills and stuff like that. So, they sit on welfare like it's a career, or they'll just have a shitload of kids. And there was this initiative that the government did when it comes to, it was something like a declining birth rate or something in the area. We needed more people or workers or some shit like that, I don't know. An investment in human capital, some shit like that they tried to push forward. But there was a baby bonus. It's like people on welfare who were having babies could get this one-off payment, and it was meant to help them set up, you know, like baby cribs and stuff like that. But the thing is, it's like they didn't use it for that. On top of that, not only did you get a baby bonus, you also got increased pay on the welfare system. So if you had more kids, you were going to get more pay. No, that seems to me like throwing your life away. Cause I don't know if I'm just biased, but I didn't want kids. And I don't see, you know, getting a bump up financially because you've just had a kid as a worthwhile incentive to be, you know, dare I say it, stuck with this person that you didn't really think it through for the next 18, 20 years, you know? Didn't seem enough of an incentive to have kids at that point. I was more inclined to go to uni. But that's because I didn't really have a choice. My parents sort of punched that into me near enough. It's like, you will go to uni, you will do this. But in my high school group, these are girls that are about 16, all having kids at 16 because, you know, you got this one-off payment, which seemed like a lot at the time because, you know, you're 16, it's like, I think it was only about $1,000 or something. It had to be about 1,000 or something like that. It wasn't a lot. Definitely not enough to sustain a kid. But they were getting a one-off payment of $1,000, and then you got an extra $200 each fortnight on your Centrelink, and it was like, oh wow, let's all have kids. So they were having like 2, 3, 4, 5 kids at a time. And if it was meant to increase the human capital, it worked. But these were all kids that are going right back into the poverty mindset, poverty cycle. Eventually, it's like, I'm just thinking, what were they now? If I'm 37, they'd be about 20 now. So yeah, they're all sitting on this fucking Centrelink still. It's like, I would love to believe that they went into education and got a decent education and got a job and things like that, but chances are they're sitting on the fucking welfare, taking pain, buying smokes. You know, it's like, and a lot of the girls who I went to high school with, who were having kids in high school, I went to school and I had girls who were bringing them with them. It's like, this isn't exactly setting a good tone. Sitting there with babies in the classroom. I remember taking a baby on a zoo excursion. I'm sitting there going, I'm taking pictures and you're changing nappies. This doesn't feel right. That was a bit odd to me. She was only 16. Going, this doesn't feel right. You're very young. But it's, you know, for some girls in those areas, it's a career move, isn't it? It's like, why bother going to school when you can just have some kids and live off welfare? It's odd to me. But then again, I had my mum drill it into my head. You know, you're not going to sit on welfare. You're going to go get an education. You're going to go get a proper fucking job, because God knows if you're going to run into another one of these fuckheads that I married. Chances are I still ran into another fuckhead that she married. But it seemed odd. But they're perpetuating the poverty cycle, because they're setting up for a fall now. They're saying, if you do this now, you will get this amount of money. And the girls weren't actually buying baby stuff with it. I mean, chances are they came from a large family anyway, and they were just cycling through that stuff. Everything was sort of passed down, which I've done myself. I came from a family of 6. I had all my siblings hand-me-downs and shit. I was living in stuff with patches and tears and shit. And when I actually finally got new stuff, it was surprising, and I was super psyched about it. So of course you take care of it. Or either that, or they were buying smokes and stuff with that. I know that much because I used to go to high school with them. I'm sitting there watching them going, I'm supposed to be like buying baby clothes and shit with that. It's like, no, I got some rollies. It's like, that's not what it's for. So you're giving them this cash bonus up front, and they don't have the mindset, the maturity to deal with what they should be doing with it either. So they run out of money. So what do? They have another kid. And it's a baby factory, essentially. You're hoping that they're going to be mature and responsible with this baby that they now have to look after, which has to somehow break the poverty cycles of their predecessors. But in reality, they're using the funds for weed, or smokes, or booze, just like their fucking parents did, and using all the hand-me-downs from other people, because it's a communal event now. Chances are we don't know who the fucking father was. So, there is a strong chance of that, because, yeah, either that or the father's just not in the picture, because it's like a hit and quit it situation. Oh, Christ. It's like, I don't know what they were trying to do except make the situation worse in that regard. It's like, why did they incentivize it? They're already having problems with that, girls getting pregnant in high schools and low SES areas. What were you thinking by giving them more money to do so? Christ. Oh my God. I think we had about 4 or 5 girls knocked up in one year. It was crazy. I'm sitting there my exams, these fuckers wandering around the schoolyard with their kids. It's like, what is going on? What have we invested in? And I don't understand what it was, because these 20-year-olds at this point, oh yeah, they must be about 20 now. I doubt they've done anything. I mean, they might have gone into trade. That's the thing, it's like you used to have like an offshoot of my uni campus. Like, I went to a pretty standard uni. It wasn't great, it wasn't shit, it was like halfway. They did an offshoot campus in the area as a sort of incentive to get into higher education, because they wanted us to get out of the shitty poverty cycles. So they're like, okay, we'll do bridging courses in year 12. We'll get you your foundation unit. What I did was I did my foundation unit, my uni foundation unit in year 12 as a TR subject, which is a brilliant initiative. Absolutely amazing, because it gave you insider experience of what uni is going to be like. And so you get used to it in that final year of high school. And, you know, you sort of know what's coming. What they did, however, a few years later, there was this, they just dropped that campus. They had built this whole new fresh campus in our area just so we could attend. I think it only lasted about 5 years or so, 6, 7, maybe 10 years max. And then now it's just abandoned. It bugs the shit out of me because it's a fucking big campus and it's useful, but right now they're just renting it out to a Montessori class, school, whatever. And it's a waste of resources. Instead, what they've done now is bump up the TAFE courses, TAFE campuses. And TAFE is like trades, essentially, welding, mechanics, stuff like that. Working with your hands. Now, there's no problem with that if you've got a skill for it, if you are naturally inclined to do it, if you can get a job through that is a decent paying job. But what they're essentially saying is, instead of investing in these higher order sort of education systems like uni, we're going to basically dumb it down and get them a job up front. Because you can drop out of high school at year 10 in my area and go straight into TAFE. You have to get through year 12 and exams and everything like that to get into uni. So I feel like it was representative of them losing faith in the education system in our area. It might have been a hope that you're giving them better life chances up front in a quicker sort of fast track kind of way. But to me, it just reflected them thinking we were incapable of, higher education. It bugs me. And I'm annoyed that the campus is laying dormant now because everything's sort of overgrown, signs are all worn and shit. It's just a waste. It was a multi-million-dollar campus as well. Huge fucking place. Brand spanking new. Got used for 10 years and then I gave it up. It's like, this is a waste. Can we not use it for something? Can we just not fix it up and use it for something? It's a waste. But I don't know. That's part of it. The uni I went to, I now know, has a few corrupt situations involved in that. So I don't know what you're going with that. Something about they were sourcing students from different countries who didn't speak English appropriately for the level at which the entry exams to get into that uni were. But because they were classing them as, it was English as a second language, but they were classing it as, different abilities, like the disabled people. When you go to somewhere and you've got like a wheelchair, you need a ramp, essentially. They were classing this second language as a different ability. And so they were letting them slide in. And essentially what they were doing is they were taking their money knowing that they'd fail. But they were taking them anyway. It was like, oh, it's on you now. We let you in. If you fail, it's you. But they were getting them to sign waivers. So it's not exactly ethical. And so I know they got holds, in front of some tribunal for that shit because it's just corrupt as fuck, dude. If you know someone's going to fail it, but you're willing to take their money for the sake of saying, we let you do it, it doesn't feel ethical to me. But I could be wrong. I don't know. I suppose you want to give them a fair chance regardless of where they came from or whether they're skilled. But, you're setting them up for a fall. And taking their money while you're at it, because they're getting all hopeful about getting a job out of this and hopefully going back to their own country and working there with an Australian degree, and it's worth more than where they come from because their country is like a third world country or some shit like that. It's incredibly unethical. So there is some kind of corruption scandals going around at that uni. So I don't know if I want to be associated with that one, but I've attended several others online which seem more reputable, so I'm quite happy with that. Yeah. It's kind of worrying, actually. I hope this isn't how I got in. I think I did it by the book, right? What is the book? But poverty cycles are so hard to get out of, and there's this stigma attached. Like, if you're sitting, and I was talking about this in my sociological degrees, I've got a social sciences degree. In poverty, there is a mindset that anyone who wants to better their life, and it's called tall poppy syndrome. Anyone who wants to stick their head or grow a little bit further than anyone else will have that flower cut the fuck off by those around him. It's people in the low SES area don't like people who stand out. They want to be collectivized. If they're not like us, they're not one of us, therefore they're the enemy, sort of thing. Which is stupid, because if you start encouraging people to better their lives, it benefits the community overall. All it does is bring abundance to the community. So you've got a bunch of people, pretty much this like grey-eyed monster jealous sort of thing, who will sit there and they'll, shit on anyone who's trying a little bit harder. I used to have like assholes in high school because I was sitting my exams and I wanted to go to uni and stuff like that, and I get a good job and stuff like that. And the girls hated me for it. I don't give a fuck. They were popular and pregnant by the time they were 18. I don't give a fuck. I know I did the right thing by going to uni because right now my life isn't shit. Despite some hiccups and some speed bumps when I got married and stuff like that, when I'm on my own, self-sufficient, I know I'm good. It's like, I'm good. I don't need to rely on people. I don't have to wait for some guy to come home to give me money so I can go buy food and shit like that. I'm good on my own. That was one of the luxuries of being self-sufficient. And I can see what their lives are like now. I'm sitting there going, I would never get myself trapped in that kind of environment. Even when I was married, I still have my independence to a certain degree. I mean, I was married to a overt narc who, exploited me for my finances, but, I still have my independence, and I knew it was going to be okay if I was single. But the girls I went to high school with, they didn't like me because I wasn't doing what they were doing, and what they were doing was essentially sleeping around to get a guy or going out partying to get a guy. And the whole thing was to get a guy, and there's a trick there. You get a guy, you get him pregnant, you get him trapped. That's your guy. Not that it ever fucking worked because the guys bailed. It was that kind of an area. But that was one of the tricks that they used to try and pull. It's like, I got a boyfriend now, he has to stay because I'm pregnant. It's like, no, actually, because this is not how this works. Because they're as just irresponsible as you are, and they'll just bail. So that's your parents' cycle all over again. The amount of kids that came out of, alcohol-fueled encounters is astounding. And it's a hard mindset to break as well, because everybody else is doing it, or this is the way we've always done it, or there's nothing else out there for me, so I might as well do it. And it's a hard mindset to break. And what you got to do is you got to look outside the box, and it's hard to do because there's no other examples in the poverty area that will tell you that there's any other way out. It's like, it's not until you get out of that fishbowl that you actually see that there are different ways of living, different ways of doing things, and not everything that you consider conventional is the right thing to do. It was very fucking eye-opening when I started traveling. When I managed to get, money enough to go and see other things, traveling different areas, different countries. Because you look at what the commonalities are in different social cultures and things like that. And you say, okay, this works for you, it doesn't work for me, but I'm going to take these bits and I like this, so I'm going to make my reality to be this. I mean, you are what you create yourself to be, essentially. There's Nietzsche in that, the Übermensch, self-actualization, stuff like that, if you want to go into looking into that. It's pretty interesting. But, in poverty, these people create these prisons of the mind where there's no other reality other than perpetuating what their parents have done. Because there's no other way out. It's like, there is other ways out. You just got to put your ass to the grindstone, get going with it. There was a huge, going through high school myself, kids wagging, just not turning up to class at all, was prevalent. And we used to have to get police escorts to make sure the kids turned up to school. It's like, they didn't give a fuck. They were going to go smoke in the bushes. Fuck it. They just didn't care. I don't know where that comes from, whether it's, their parents just don't value education because it didn't work for them, so fuck it, why would it work for their kids? Or they themselves were just disaffected teenagers, and they're just like, I just can't be fucked doing this because my life at home is already fucked up enough. I can't be bothered doing this now. Or they just didn't see value in education because it took effort and commitment and persistence. I mean, I was never particularly good at school, but I kept going. And I was comfortable there because it was safer than home. So that's what drove me to get, my education and quite a few degrees actually at this point. Not bragging, just surprised that I got them. It's like, why would you let me? But, it's like there's a whole clusterfuck of reasons why kids just can't be fucked seeing education as a vehicle for bettering their life chances. Mainly effort, I find. It's like, that and kids in my classes these days just get bored easily. I'm going, well, it's not entertaining, so I'm not going to sit here and do it. And they'll have a whine and a whinge that even things like colouring in. They don't want to colour in. But it's colouring in, man. I used to love colouring in when I was a kid. What is going on? It's boring and I want to do it. I can't be bothered doing it. There's also, in the education system, where we're now trying to negotiate with kids whether they feel like they should be doing something or not. And that way the, honest to perform is on them. And I say is we're not doing our job. We're negotiating with kids. Rather than saying you need to do this, this is what you're doing. How do you feel today? Do you feel like doing this today? Is this okay? And you know what it is? It's teachers covering their ass. It's a bunch of parents getting shitty about us being bullies to their kids, apparently, because we want them to actually do anything. So we took a step back and we said, right, we're going to now negotiate. And if the kid fucks up, it's on you. Of course, we're going to get blamed for it, but fuck it. It's like, you got to stop doing this, kowtowing to parents. It bugs the shit out of me because we're trained professionals, supposedly. But we're having to negotiate with these assholes who are untrained, have no concept of what needs to be done to get to a particular place. And it's just for the sake of covering our own asses. It's like, no, I'm a teacher. You don't go into a doctor's surgery and tell them how to fucking operate. You know, you don't. You don't negotiate with what you need to be done to, you know, save someone from cancer. You just do it because it needs doing. Someone goes into emergency and someone's got a leg off. You don't negotiate with the patient. It's like, how do you feel today? Should we stem this bleeding? Oh, I don't know. I'll get you to sign this waiver. It's like, no, you fucking do it. It bugs the shit out of me. We've dumbed down the teaching profession, which is meant to be a gateway and a bridge to getting the kids out of poverty and stuff like that. For the sake of, you know, stroking parents' egos and shit like that. It's just, it doesn't make sense. Anyway, that's what I'm walking to in this morning. I'm going to go negotiate with a bunch of kids about why they should be doing science. But there's also that, and it bugs the crap out of me. It's like, you're not seeing the value of this in order to get out of these shit circumstances. You're not seeing long term, you're seeing in the immediate, I don't feel like it, this is not good enough for me right now, I can't be bothered. And it's that, there's a culture of that in poverty that will, you know, fuck you up long term completely. You got to absolutely change your mindset. You got to have faith in the system because it does work. And you got to be persistent. And lots of people just lose that drive to keep going because I'm not seeing immediate results, or, you know, it's too hard, or I can't be bothered. And that's what will land you back into poverty. There's also, to a certain degree, limited chances for opportunities to educate yourself. So when you see them, you should fucking take them. Don't sit there and have a go at them because that's boring. One of my things my kids are saying right now is that's gay. It's like, that's not gay, you fucking idiot. First of all, don't even let me start on what actual gay is. It gives me that shit. That's gay. Well, better start signing on because that's what you're going to do. It's like, you don't want to learn? Fine. I'll take my skills somewhere else and help someone else. Bugs the shit out of me. Ungratefulness. And all that translates to is, I can't be bothered. It bugs the shit out of me. But that's part of the culture of living in poverty. So cycles are hard to break. I can't even. And it's like, I know what it is to live in a poverty cycle because I had it from 5 years on. Well into my 20s, mid-20s was when I really started earning. So 5 years old to mid-20s. I don't know what my below 5 was. Probably wasn't great. But my parents, for a short while there, had some money. My dad was actually working. My mum was at home looking after 3 kids actually at that point. No, 4 kids. She had 4 kids. But they were living in a slightly better off area. So things were okay. Once it got to about 5, my dad started quitting his job. It's like he knew that we would be overloaded. 4 kids, no money. Yeah, fuck it. Yeah, now's a good time to quit. So I know what it is to live in poverty. It's not great. It's not something I would want to sit in. There's no romanticizing of it. Some people are like, oh, we're the underdog, we're struggling, and it's great because, yeah, we're tough and all that shit. It's like, stop. That is not something to be celebrated. That is something to be escaping from, getting the fuck out of. It's not a good thing. There's nothing good about going without. There's nothing good about having to make do, not having the same life chances, of being subject to the things like violence and alcoholism and drug abuse that comes with poverty. There's no romanticizing it. No one should be proud to come from a shithole. It's abusive. You are only proud of that maybe because of toughness to survive in it, maybe. But at the same time, you should always be working to get the fuck out of it. Don't sit in it like it's your fucking identity. That's not something to be happy about All it means is that you fucking copied what your parents did and you failed at achieving anything in life. It bugs the shit out of me when they try and romanticize. My ex-boyfriend was like that. Bugs the shit out of me. Bear in mind, he didn't actually want to get a job or anything. He wanted someone else to get it for him. But, you know, it's like, don't romanticize this. This is not nice. Going without, being smacked around because it's normal. It's not normal. It's horrible. Why? So, you know, you got to, walking away from that, because I've just pulled up to school, walking away from this, the thing to remember is, it is temporary. You should not be glorifying it, to be honest. It's not something that is standard or it should be perpetuated. I don't think it is. There is maybe a romanticization, if that's even a word, of poverty while you're in it, only because you're using it as a coping mechanism to deal with it. It's like we're stuck in this at this point. Are we trying to get out of it? That's what you should be aiming for. The best thing you can do, I think, is education, and you need to be able to stick with it and know that the end goal is a better life, or aiming to get a better life as well. I cannot stick with people who think it's the best thing in the world, who just sign on to welfare and don't want to get out of it. You know, it's like, oh, this is what we are. It's like, no, that's just settling for a shit lifestyle because your parents did it, or because your friends do it, and you don't want to, you know, stick your head above the trenches and try for anything. It's just, it seems lazy to me. I don't know. But that's only speaking from me coming out of there. It's like, once you're out, you're like, I'm so glad I've actually done this. It's like, I know what it is to go without. I know what it is to starve. I don't want to do that again. It's not something to be, you know, just sit with. And I suppose when you're in the poverty cycle, you don't know, because you can't see the forest for the trees. You can't see what it's like to have enough money to feed your people, to go to a shopping center and not have to worry about whether you've got money in your account and stuff like that. It's you won't know until you do it. So it's Monday speaking about that. I'm going to go in my wage now because I'm nearly on my way to getting my house. I'm hoping you have a fantastic day. I'll try and do another podcast tomorrow. Hopefully one less morbid, I would expect. Have a great one, and I will see you tomorrow.
So space, night, death, darkness, not being there is an essential component of being there. You don't have the one without the other.